and welcome back to Guiding Stars. My name is Stephanie, aka the Star Keeper.
I'm also Stephanie, aka Starlin.
The Star Sisters. So we have a topic in mind today that kind of corresponds to the energies that are going on while we are recording this video. So though it is time dated for the beginning of this, the topic that we are talking about is so important for everyday use, right? So I'm tying it into a moment in time, but this is really important for all the time. So while we were recording this, this is the eve of the full moon. This is the full moon in Virgo. Virgo is all about purging, healing, cleansing, detoxifying, purification. And we are also just days away from the vernal equinox in the Northern Hemisphere. It's the spring equinox, which I personally count as the real new year, as everything is birthed in the spring. And with that comes the energy of spring cleaning, another theme of this purification cleansing process. So today, me and Starr want to talk a little bit about how important it is for spiritual hygiene. What is spiritual hygiene? A couple common practices and why you should do it all the time. So yeah, without further to say, spiritual hygiene is the topic.
Yeah, and it's really important for people to start recognizing that spiritual hygiene is just as important as your physical hygiene and your physical health.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't notice it as much as you can with your physical. And that's why a lot of times people don't realize that we are so much more than just the physical body. Like you're saying, like if you don't brush your teeth, someone's going to notice, right? You're going to smell. If you don't take a shower, someone's going to notice, you're going to smell, you're going to look dirty. But on our spiritual side, which we are predominantly, it's the unseen realm. We have such a small amount that is physical, and yet we think it's the whole world. We have auras. We have this physical shield around us, this aura that we all have. It goes out very far, very high, and below. And it's our own personal cocoon of energy. And within this energy, we get, stuck, stagnant experiences. If you had a painful breakup or something like that, it actually stays in your field. So meanwhile, maybe you thought you healed it, but if you didn't do the spiritual work to remove or cord cutting, a lot of that stuff stays in our field. So if you're thinking negatively or having an argument with somebody, again, your field will hold on to this. So we wonder why sometimes we can feel drained, tired, inexplicably down, when we forget that we are so much more than our physical selves. We have to start paying attention to our spiritual body, because in relation to how things work in the greater realm and how things work within ourselves, the layers actually go spiritual first. Things enter the spiritual field first. You might not be consciously aware of it. Your body certainly isn't feeling it, but it's entering the spiritual field. After that, I'm torn between whether it hits emotional or mental first. I almost beg to say that it hits both at the same time. I view emotional and mental as the two hemispheres. So it'll enter your emotional field, your mental field. And if you don't address it by then, especially if it's a stagnant, heavy energy, if it's something painful, if it's something that's been ignored for a long time, in order to fully get your attention, it then finally manifests into a physical ailment, some kind of sickness, some type of pain, injury, and our body is deeply connected to everything within us. So even in astrology, we look at Aries, the ram, as the head. And Virgo, as I mentioned earlier, is like the intestines, hence why it's the cleansing and purification process. And so everything is connected in these ways, and we'll manifest sicknesses thinking, oh, where'd this come from? Chances are it entered your field first. So something even as severe as like cancer, most of the time stems from some type of heavy spiritual weight. And that's why a lot of things are fixed with mindset.
Yeah, so absolutely. Everything hits our electromagnetic field, which is the scientific term for our aura, first, before it manifests into the physical, always. And so throughout our lives, people go through traumatic situations, emotional situations, and those. So a child going through maybe like a traumatic car accident per se, okay? They experience those emotions in that moment, and they don't know how to address those feelings at all because they're just a child. So is what happens is all of that energy ends up storing somewhere in the body. It
Yes.
like finds a specific spot in your body to hide,
Mhm.
and it can end up becoming a physical ailment later if you don't get treatment for it,
Yeah.
and cleanse that energy. Yes, it's very, very, very important. And there are multiple layers of our electromagnetic field as
Yes.
well, but ultimately, it's very, very, very important to heal as we go throughout life. And this is something that we should be taught as humans, as like you were saying, number one thing that
Yeah.
we need to be doing is addressing our own personal emotions and everything that goes out into our electromagnetic field. Obviously, we just need to address things so they don't sit there and
Yeah.
become something bigger than they don't need to be. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And it really does help with the processing of things. So, we talk about why it's so important and becoming aware of your energetic field. You ever feel like super attracted to somebody's energy? It's their field, it's the frequency that we're vibrating at. When you're feeling heavy or someone around you feels heavy, chances are they're dealing with, depression, anxiety. And these things tend to be, again, spiritual in nature. Everything is spiritual first. And I'm going to keep saying this because I find that this is super important to understand, to digest. Everything is spirit first, and then we can look at the physical aspect. So like even something as simple as like modern day medicine, they just treat physical symptoms, and a lot of times it's so much deeper. You can keep manifesting illness if you are in a sick mind state, a sick energetic frequency, a sick spiritual condition. And
Yeah.
so I like to talk a lot about, energy, and how the first law of energy is it cannot be created nor destroyed. And so one of the first things I want to jump into about spiritual hygiene is about what happens when we go to sleep. When we go to sleep, our body is sleeping, but our mind, our consciousness is still active and awake. That can't actually shut down. It can't actually go anywhere. So the dreams that we have, the nightmares that we have, are all about us actually being in the astral realm, the non-physical realm, the realm in between. And we're not taught that we need to actually have spiritual protection during this time. And so, like you mentioned, Starr, this is something that should be taught right away, early, with the regular hygiene, with, okay, kids, brush your teeth, let's do this, and let's clear the field. And some people can say, well, I pray before bed. Okay, that works for you. But I also believe that we need to be acknowledging the astral side of us. So shielding up before bed, because if you're not setting an intention, if you're not aware of what's the astral realm is real, then you have no defenses. And so a lot of times, I personally believe, I was a kid who grew up with a lot of nightmares. I didn't watch horror movies. I wasn't allowed to watch scary things. So my idea is like, why was this coming to me as a child? Why was I so afraid? And I believe that as a child, I was a lot more prone to astral traveling. And the spiritual community, I'm sure, Starr, you can attest to this, they talk a lot about promoting astral travel. But nobody, not, let me not say nobody, I'm sure there's many who do, but the common census towards this, what you typically hear is you don't hear anyone warning about the safety of it.
Right.
You don't hear anybody warning about the fact that if you're not shielding up, if you're not aware that there are nefarious beings, just as there are good beings in these astral planes, that you need to protect yourself from, you're leaving yourself open to an attack or hijacking.
Yeah. So, for me, I would say for the last year and a half, every night before I go to bed, I shield and protect myself, my family, my home, and then I go on to my immediate family that doesn't live with me that I grew up with, and
Mm-hmm.
whoever I want to shield. So what I do just before I go to bed, close my eyes, and I imagine putting over an invisibility cloak over my body,
I
just
love
like
that.
Little Red Riding Hood's cloak, but invisible. And when I put that invisibility cloak over myself at night, I am putting the intentions out that I am protecting not only my physical body while I'm sleeping and defenseless, but I am also protecting my astral body, because we all astral travel when we're sleeping.
Yes.
We all go to other realms and dimensions, and we don't remember them when we wake up. So when we're going to sleep, it's really important that you are aware, like you're saying, that we are astral traveling, and it is somewhat safe, but it is also, it could be a dangerous place.
Yes.
So it is important to protect yourself. So what I do is I protect my physical, and then I protect my astral body for when I am out traveling wherever I'm going. But I don't stop there. I also cloak my boyfriend. I cloak my children. I cloak my building. Once I'm done cloaking all of the humans in the house, and if there's any animals, then I cloak the entire household that I'm in, the entire building. And I live in apartments, so all the other people that live in this whole building, they're lucky
They
because
have
they're
no
all
idea.
getting protected. All people and animals. Anybody's inside the building, you're protected.
It's
So I
beautiful.
seal it off in my mind. And it is really, really, really important to do this, because we don't know most of the people that we're traveling, and you are more susceptible to getting attacked in your sleep by any kind of dark forces. Specifically the people that really talk out about this thing, that actually get psychic attacks and physical attacks. They know they protect themselves every single night before they go to bed.
Mandatory.
For sure. Yeah. Oh yeah.
And
Very
anyone who's
important stuff.
experienced what they call sleep paralysis, I mean, it tries to talk about this being a scientific thing, but really this is all spiritual. When most people experience sleep paralysis, not only are they stuck and unable to move, communicate, they're just stuck in their mind because they're actually not anchored into their body. But typically, and I don't mean to alarm anyone who hasn't heard of this, but it typically also sees some type of shadow figure above you, watching you, very close to you. It's an oppressive feeling. It's a terrifying feeling. And often this happens because you were unprotected in the astral plane, and you are waking up because, and again, I don't mean to alarm anybody, spiritual practices, we're spiritual in nature. And just because you are awakening to this doesn't mean that this is going to happen to you. But this being is actually trying to enter your vacant body. So you're vacant in a sense because your consciousness is not anchored in. Yes, your brain is here and thought patterns are occurring, but we're so much more than that, right? The spiritual essence of who we are is currently in the astral plane. So a being wants to take the body for a ride, wants to temporarily enter this. And so typically we wake up during this because it's happening in the physical, right? So you're waking up in between. If you see this being and feel this energy, it's very hard to wake up from it. And I found, because I have experienced this in the past, I was much younger, and you basically have to take control of your mind because your physical is still asleep, and you have to basically banish it, pray, ask for protection, bring in the light, and the being typically leaves. And people think, was I just dreaming? What was that? But the reality is that this is real. This does happen. There are both good and bad in the spiritual side, because everything is spirit, everything is energy. There's only a small visible light spectrum that our eyes are capable of seeing, and yet the spectrum of light goes so much bigger than the visible light spectrum. Vibrational frequencies go so much higher and lower than what we're even able to hear. So there is a much larger unseen realm than there is the seen realm, which is why we need to give practice to protecting ourselves, to understanding it, and to working with it in the light aspects of it. So a lot of times people deem, spirit work as negative or demonic, satanic. And, it gets a bad rap just because a lot of times it's, organized religion deems anything like this to be negative. But the truth is, this has been the reality of our reality long before organized religion existed. We understood that we're spiritual beings. And the more that we can understand and protect ourselves, the safer it actually becomes, the more power we have in these realms, and the more connected we become. So like if you are experiencing psychic attacks or having nightmares or waking up with sleep paralysis, it's time that you begin to protect yourself in the nighttime. And then also I want to talk about protecting ourselves in everyday situations, before you leave your house, before you go anywhere, we should be shielding up and protecting.
Yeah, I even do it in the morning, not as often as I do it in the night. But that is a good point to do as well. We should be protecting ourselves. And, also whenever I get in the car, especially recently, my son just got his permit. So, we get in the car now, we're driving. Every single time now when I get in the car, I put good intentions out that all the cars and the people we interact with out while we're in motion in the vehicle are all like, it's all smooth. Everybody knows what they're doing. You put the intentions of the good energy out, and, that'll come back to you. What you put out boomerangs back. What you ask for, you shall receive. Now you were stating, the sleep paralysis that you had, and that could have been something that was preventable if we were taught how to protect ourselves throughout our sleep. Not saying that every single time you do it, there's not a, I can't guarantee that something's not going to try and come after you or whatever. It depends on the level of energy that you work with. If you work with that energy, technically, that's what they call magic. You're just manipulating energy in a bad way to benefit you. Well, you're probably going to get attacked, and then, so it's really good to protect ourselves all the time, put out the good intentions and energies. So we are protected throughout the day.
And just like you said, with like the driving, putting the intention out there doesn't mean that nothing is going to happen. But what does mean is, let's say if an accident were to happen, you're a lot more protected in the scenario, right? Maybe the car takes a hit and you guys are totally safe, right? Like, oh, that should have killed us. And yet here we are totally fine, right? So we can't control outcomes or things that have to happen, but we can not control. I don't like to use that word for this, because you can't control. You can just set intentions and work with the energy, right? Bringing the awareness in so you can protect yourself as much as possible. So it's, a lot of times when people talk about, manifestation and wondering why they're not getting things immediately, like, you're still co-creating. The reality still has to play out the way it's meant to. But if you are playing an active part in it, you get to say like, hey, I'd like to be protected. Okay, well, an accident needs to happen. Okay, well, can I still be protected? Yes. Right. So like, we can't sit here and say, I prayed and this still happened. Like, yes, and that's the way it's meant to be. And that's
right.
okay.
And you can't you can't stop the way that certain things are supposed to play out, but you can definitely ask for that protection.
Yeah, we could totally co-create and mingle. And so one of the first things for like basic spiritual hygiene, I have one lit here. We started off this video setting an intention, a beautiful intention set by Starr here, but then we also lit some white sage. Grab it. Something as simple as clearing your field with this beautiful smoke. So white sage is such a thick, dense smoke that enters our field and clears out a lot of heaviness, stagnation. There's something I like to talk about where it's energetic stains. And for an example, I was outside at my parents' house one day in the summertime, and we live on a pretty busy corner, and almost an accident occurred there, right? Like beeping, honking, we see slamming the brakes, right? And I'm like, oh, that was heavy. That was crazy. Literally, the next cars that come by have a similar incident. Someone on a bike almost gets hit. I run inside, I get the sage. I'm like, there's an energetic stain left there. And people entering it are picking up on this without knowing. And the reason I was able to know is because I was paying attention. I was an outsider observing, and I saw everybody falling into this energy. And so I talk about energetic stains, with like battlefields where a lot of people have been, killed, and things feel heavy. That's why we get hauntings. It's not always a conscious being walking around knocking things. Sometimes just an energetic stain of a highly charged moment that just recycles. And if you're near the energy while it's occurring, you'll hear it, you'll interact with it. And so I just kind of cleared that field with some sage. It was outside, so the smoke just drifted. And shortly after, people drove through just fine. Now, without a permanent fix? No, but it's a temporary clearing. And that's one level of protection. So sage won't be the end all be all to all type of things. If you're getting, if you're dabbling in the dark arts and not protecting yourself and you feel like you're getting attacked, sage is not quite the answer. You're going to need more. You're going to need to call in support. You're going to need to channel into your higher
just
self.
Stop doing the bad stuff.
Yeah. Or maybe dip out for a little while.
Yeah.
Maybe check in with yourself and check your intentions. But the reality is, though it helps, it's not the end all be all. So there's many different levels, and you should be doing as much as you can to help your clearing. So yeah, sage is one thing. And then there's also, crystals, and we can get into some of those as well. I wrote down some of the crystals. But yeah, do you have anything to add on to that part before I move on to?
Yeah. So with the sage, I learned from this one psychic who I would go to these like psychic fairs every so often. I had a reading from this one psychic, and she told me when I go home, because I had some entities attached to me throughout childhood, and she cleared them off. But she said when I go home, she wanted me to sage my entire house, because energy, like you were saying before, cannot be created nor destroyed, but it can get stuck and stagnant, those pockets. So you have to move it. So the saging, you're literally moving it and you're shifting it out like you're sweeping out the house. So she told me when you're doing it, you want to do it in a counterclockwise in your house. So you start in the room, you want to go counterclockwise, open up the windows, sage around the windows with the intentions of all of that bad energy leaving through the windows or open doors or whatever. She mentioned when you're saging, you say, or you can have the intentions. You can either think it or say it. You say, I am kicking out any and all low vibration energies, entities, spirits, anything that has any low charge and wants to do harm to my household. You're out. I'm kicking you out. You are no longer welcome. Do not come back. So you have these intentions, right? You can say it however you want to say it. So ultimately, you're kicking it out of the space. The most important thing she told me that most people don't really pay attention to, they just know the first part, sage and clear.
Yeah.
Well, the laws of nature, when something leaves, something else comes in. So if you don't make sure that okay. So what she was saying is once you clear it out, you say to your higher self, God, universe, I am requesting that all energy that's going to come back in and fill up this space be of high vibration, high love energy. Any of my angels, any of my guides that are working with me and my family for the greatest good of all, for all of us involved, please come refill up this space. Yeah. Because if you don't, you leave your windows and your doors open, guess what? Anything that we can't see with our eye can just creep back in and fill up that space. There's no voids. So what you move out, you better move something good back in.
That makes so much sense. And it's funny because anytime I do clearing in the house with sage, smudging and whatever I'm using, I always open the windows first and I go from like room to room. And I close the windows from each room, right? So first I open it and then I do the same thing. I say, banishing all negative energy, entities, and beings. You are no longer welcome here. And then I used to say, rather than welcoming in, which I will start to do because it makes sense, there can't be a void, everything has to be filled. But what I do say is only energies of the utmost highest intention for me, for my family, whoever I'm in the room with. Only light beings, energy of God is allowed to stay present, positive energy.
And remain, yes.
Also, yeah, because also sage is such a thick clearer that it wipes the slate clean.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's also removing. Yeah, it's also removing positivity. It's clearing. Not that you're going to be depressed after, but it's removing everything. It blanks slates. So when you're clearing everything, you want to make sure that you set the intention to, I'm just looking to remove the dark. I would like to keep, my positive energy and things that I've set an intention already. And welcoming
and bring more of that back in to clear up or to fill up the space we just cleared.
That makes so much sense. I love that you said that. As a matter of fact, I wrote it down. And I just want to say the more specific you are, the better. So when they talk about, being in the light, being of a higher vibration, connecting to God consciousness or the universe or your highest self, whatever you're most comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
It's very important to understand that things that come of the light bring clarity.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't feel clarity and instead you feel confusion, confusion comes from the dark. And I hate to say dark is bad, only light, because dark is useful. But I'm talking about specifically negative intentions, negative beings, not just dabbling in the dark and dealing with the polarity. I'm talking about these other beings do not have your best intention in mind, that do exist.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really important that you're looking for clarity. If you don't feel clear on something, don't act right away.
Right.
It's really important to understand that when there is confusion, so we look out into the world a lot, there's a lot of confusion going on. If you're confused, take a step back.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Look at the details, ask for clarity. It is so important. And I just want to state this because it's very much the topic of spiritual hygiene, is having a relationship with source, having a relationship with God, having a relationship, whatever it is that you choose to believe in, because we are constantly co-creating.
Mm-hmm.
We are not in this alone. And so often we are shifted to the mind state that we're alone, that we're abandoned here, that everything you want to do, you got to do it yourself. But the reality is, when you wake up in the morning and you can list things that you're grateful for, but also ask, how can you serve? How can you be in the highest alignment, communicating, because then these opportunities will be brought to you. So another thing is setting intentions and communing with God, nature, source, the universe, however you want to describe it, but having that communion so that you can understand better if something feels negative or off, or if it doesn't. So it's, again, you're accumulating discernment through this spiritual practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So, ultimately, protecting ourselves when we sleep is one of the first steps. And then cleansing your house often. I mean,
Yes.
I do it probably once a month, but it wouldn't be bad to do it once a week, honestly.
Yeah. Or after like an argument or
Every
an
time,
intense
yes,
moment,
yes.
you have to clear that stuff away, because
Mm-hmm.
it's very easy for it to get stuck within
It
you,
does.
and also within the walls of the house, because the house itself or the apartment, whatever you're living in, does take on an energy of its own. And a lot of
Yes.
times people wonder why they can't quite heal or grow up in a spiritual sense in like your old family home with your family. And it's because a lot of times the house itself at some point takes on an energy of its own, a routine, a stagnant energy. And so people often feel the need to, move out in order to grow up, or move to another region in order to, because what you're really doing is liberating yourself from stuck energy. And so even within our bodies, physical movement in general is another practice for spiritual hygiene. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but what you were saying about the
Oh,
house,
no.
making me think about how the walls literally hold on to codes and information. And if it's done long enough, a routine of abuse or a routine of stagnation, it's going to be hard to create that movement.
Yeah, because it fills up in your space. It's just like pouring water into a cup. If you're pouring out so much negativity in your house, not just you, today it's you, tomorrow it's your partner, the next day it's your kids, the next day it's a guest over in the house, whatever. Yeah, you have to clear that out. So it's really important to do that, especially after arguments or like heavy situations. But also another thing is I seal up my windows with my intention. So after I clear out my space, I keep the windows open, then I seal them up and I say, no, nothing is allowed to come through here. Kind of like the vampire with the garlic,
Yeah,
where
right,
you
with
have to
the
be
silver.
invited, or you have to be like invited in. You can set up your own intentions, like nothing's allowed to come back in, So, but yes, and then like what you were just saying, when you were talking about like the old house and stuff, and then doing more spiritual hygiene is with movement, that I would say is a very, very important thing to do, because our energy gets stuck within us. And I just had a reading with you recently for the astrology, which was so amazing. I recommend it for everybody.
Oh, thank you.
And even though mine was just a short little version of it, you mentioned to me part of my sign, and I think this is a part of everybody just in general, movement is key. You
Mm-hmm.
got to move out that energy. You got to get it going and flowing.
Yes.
And you do that dancing, exercise, walking,
Mm-hmm.
any form, just pacing if you have to,
Yeah.
you
If you
know.
think of like what happens to stagnant water, right? It turns into smelly, stinky swamp.
Mm-hmm.
Like stagnant water is and we're like, I'd say 80% water. I know it's less than that, but I just like to round up because I feel like we should be more. There's so much of us that is water, and how water is always listening. And so when we're talking to our body, or the way we talk to ourselves, it stays within our waters, and water is the conduit of spiritual energy. So even in astrology, like you mentioned, I do astrology. The element of water always deals with psychic phenomena, always.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at a lot of conduits working with energy, you look at baptisms, it's always water. And
Mm-hmm.
talking about cleansing, even something as simple as an intentional shower. An
Yes.
intentional shower, not just showering to be clean, but showering. And everything is visualization, right? Because you have to visualize the energy so that you can start to see it. You visualize your aura. So one of the tricks that I do if I'm really feeling like stagnant is remembering my body's water. I do drink my water. I talk to my waters better. But then I take a shower and I imagine that I'm washing off this dark, mucky yuck, this whatever goop, and then I scrub, and I start to reveal the light being that I am, right? So it's all a visualization, and you go through it and you do feel lighter.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a mental reality. What you think, we create. Everything that's been built has been a thought first, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have to acknowledge that that's a part of our ability, is to receive information from spirit, imagine it, visualize it, and bring it to life. And so we're doing that every day, subconsciously or unconsciously, whether we're aware of or not, the words that we speak. So even spiritual hygiene, moving from physical shower to how you talk to yourself. You
Mm-hmm.
can't really control the way others talk to you, besides cutting people off who are abusive. But we really have to start looking at how we talk to ourselves, because our body's waters are always listening and are responding. We can talk sickness right into ourselves, and that's what we call hypochondriacs. These are phenomenons that we know. And then, we're able to think ourselves into miraculous healing. And what is that known as? That's placebo. And
Mm-hmm.
so these are phenomenons that are documented, that we know. And now we can look at it as a spiritual hygiene. It's
Yeah.
a cleansing. The way we
Mm-hmm.
speak, there's conscious language. There's a whole book on it. It's wonderful. I can put the link to that as well. But like really choosing your words wisely, rather than saying a whole lot of things like I need, which implies lack, and saying I choose,
Mm-hmm.
empowering yourself. And there's so many words and spells within the language. But really, if you're telling yourself you're a failure, if you're hard on yourself for not doing something correctly, if you hate the way you look and you look in the mirror and you're just giving yourself all of that energy, how could you expect to move through the energy feeling lighter? How could you expect to shine? Like your body
Mm-hmm.
is listening, your spirit is listening, and it's saying, okay, if
Mm-hmm.
that's the energy we're creating, then that's what we'll have. So another part of spiritual hygiene is something that I think you took so many notes on, so I'd love to throw it back over to you. But words of affirmation.
Yeah, yeah. So, words of affirmations are really, really, really good and helpful for people who are just going through a tough time in their life. They've been that way. They feel like, okay, I'm just a depressed person now, and I can't, seem to move past anything that's going on in my life. Or also for a great amount of the humans that are waking up to all of the BS that's around us, and it's very difficult to process, and it's difficult to watch,
Mhm.
and it's easier to hide and run. But when you don't hide and run and you look at it, it really can throw you into a funk. So, one of the best, easiest, quickest ways that I have learned, and I feel is appropriate for people to bounce out of that, is affirmations. The old saying, fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it is fake it till you make it, because when we start with affirmations, we already know that there's a problem, which is great
Mhm.
because we're recognizing that there's an issue and we're putting energy and attention into changing it.
Yes.
Not fixing, because, change is a better word I feel is appropriate. But so you start with the affirmations, you say good, positive affirmations in the morning. you're out in the shower, when you're driving in the car. I have 2 videos that I actually like to watch. I listen to them quite often, and they're affirmations from a woman, Louise Hay. Some of you may have heard of her, some of you may have not. Go ahead and Google her. She's amazing. But these 2 specific videos are amazing. They've helped me jump out of my own funk, and I've handed them along to some friends, and they've helped them out as well.
That's
which
beautiful.
we can put in the link below.
Yes.
But when you're in the shower, throw these affirmations on in the morning. Listen to them. When you're in the car, throw these affirmations on. Listen to them. When you're feeling negative about yourself, throw these affirmations on. Listen to them. Mix them up. When you're done with one, start the other. When you're done with that one, bounce back to the other. Because within a couple of days to a couple of weeks, depending on the severity of your situation and what you're handling and what you're dealing with, you'll start to feel better about yourself. Because when we look in the mirror and we're sad and we're depressed and we hate the world, we hate ourselves, we hate the way we look, oh, I'm so ugly, oh, I'm so fat, or oh, I'm getting wrinkles here and I'm not perfect. You're brainwashing yourself. You're doing what the government's doing to us, okay? They're brainwashing us. Lies.
Yeah, reinforcing the negativity.
We're all beautiful. No matter what we look like, whatever shape, size, color, wrinkles, no wrinkles, doesn't matter. We're magical and we're from source, and that's what makes us beautiful. So when you start these affirmations, they're going to feel uncomfortable.
Yes.
They're not going to feel like you believe them.
Yeah, and in the beginning you won't. And something that I've noticed with affirmations, I used to listen to some, but then I would start to write my own. Simple things, and when doing affirmations, especially if you're writing your own, it's really important to write from the current present moment as if you already have it. Not that you, again, the conscious language, not that you want to be happy or I am happy, right? So we're possessing it now and bringing it to our reality now. And even if it is not necessarily true to you right now, like you said, and I believe we talked about this in our first episode, but we're going to continue because this is so important. It is so important that we reprogram ourselves and that you say it until you believe it, and that you say it until it becomes your reality, because that is a part of the co-creation, and that is the spiritual hygiene. It's cleaning up your mind, your body, your spiritual aura, the things that you believe in, the things that you hold true. And so when you say it in the beginning, you're going to be either looking at the mirror or saying it yourself, like, I am beautiful. I am beautiful. And eventually, at some point, you're going to look in the mirror and say, I am beautiful. And you're going to mean it. And you're going to feel it. And so it's okay in the beginning if it doesn't resonate. It's okay in the beginning if it feels inauthentic or like you're lying. You got to start somewhere, because the reality is the hateful stuff is the real lie. The stuff that you believe now is the lie. And you're reprogramming, undoing the loops and stuff that we're taught, this hateful program that's here on earth that we have to purge, that we have to protect ourselves from. And so another part of the spiritual hygiene that I want to mention, besides words of affirmation, besides smudging and saging and protecting your field at bedtime, is also working with crystals. So crystals are phenomenal. Crystals really do have power. Ask your phone, ask your computer. That's all crystals and minerals from the ground. That's processing information. So they hold data, they hold information, they hold frequencies. And so certain ones are best for protection. Some are good for amplifying. And I'm only going to get into the ones that are more predominant for protection, because that's our topic for today. So crystals for protection. I just wrote down a simple 3. Everyone's probably heard of this one, black tourmaline. Black is the protection color because black absorbs. And so witches, why do they wear black? They're protecting their field. Black's a power color, right? We put it on when we don't want to take on the energy. The black will either absorb or repel. So when it comes to black tourmaline, it actually repels negative energy. So they have bracelets and necklaces, or you can hold a piece. Like I have a nice piece here with me. Unpolished, that one's raw. And that one's great for when you're doing meditation work. That one's great for keeping near your bedside. That one, you hold, you set your intentions. And if you're wearing it when you go out, you're naturally repelling some energy. You're not taking on necessarily everybody in the room. Now, when you are working with a clear crystal, like a quartz, That's a highly amplified crystal. Now, that's not always good for protection because it amplifies everything. So though it's the most highest vibrating crystal, it's not always something you want. So I got this little piece here. I got something bigger too, but there's a little piece of like clear quartz. If I was looking to protect myself, if I was dealing with negative energy, this would only amplify. So when people think crystals are bad or they're good, they're neither. They're just conduits holding energy, and we channel and we can program and we can help. But I would not suggest using something clear for protecting yourself.
No.
It's just going to amplify whatever's within, whatever you're working with. And these are so high that they actually don't need to be cleared. But if you were doing spiritual astral work with one, I would clear it just in case. You clear your crystals by either smudging them with some sage, putting them out in some sunlight. Some crystals you can't put out in sunlight, like amethyst loses its purple. I believe citrine gets lighter. But you can also cleanse them in water. Some crystals can't go in water. Learn your crystals, make sure you know how to treat them. But most of the time it's a smudging and an intention. Another crystal is pyrite. I think I said that wrong. I always want to call it pyrite, but I believe it's pyrite. Fool's gold. This is a detoxifier. And this one helps with the energy from computers, EMFs. And a lot of times the technology that we use is embedded with negative energies and entities. So a little off topic tangent. I don't know how familiar you are with the Starr. If you are, chime in at any moment. But there's something called Scrying Mirrors, which is an all black mirror. You can't really see out of it. It's meant to be a shiny reflection, but not in the same way that like a mirror is, right? It's a black surface, and it's used for channeling. And this is some of the first ways that people were figuring out they were able to channel other beings from other realms. It actually started off with dark water, looking into dark water, and eventually seeing and channeling and receiving information. Now, that's all well and good until you interact with the wrong beings. And so we look at black screens all day. Have you heard of the series Black Mirror?
Yes, I've watched.
And that's all about dystopian realities and negative stuff. And Black Mirror is a scrying mirror. So they're actually trying to pull out these entities, these negative realities through the show.
I never thought of it that way. Yeah. Yes, that is absolutely right. Yep.
Yeah. So, crystals and stuff like that, they can be used for stuff like this, but it's up to us to use them correctly. So we do want to protect ourselves from some of the negative intentions that are planted in the things that we use every day. So pyrite does a great job for that. And I believe, is it shungite?
Yeah,
that's another EMF blocker, right? If I'm not mistaken. That one's awesome, keeping that near your electronics, because again, electronics can hold possessions and we can be receiving them. Some people have done studies and looked into it spiritually and say that technology is often giving us negative information and is responsible for some of the intrusive thoughts that we get. Like, ever walk down a flight of stairs and someone's in front of you and you just imagine pushing them? Like, you wouldn't want to do that, but the thought enters the field and you're like, what the heck is this? And you wonder where it's coming from, right? Well, there's all sorts of energy we can tap into, and some people may give into that type of energy thinking it was their own thought and cause a random acts of violence. We wonder.
Right.
Temporary possessions, someone mistaking these things that are in the field at all times for their own thoughts.
Well, so actually, speaking on that specific little, I'm just going to go off on a little side topic.
I just tangent. Go ahead.
So with the random thought that comes through your mind that's not necessarily yours and you think it is, and then you make that action, there's actually energy entities, and we can get into this later, that only exist to stir up issues. They're called the stirrers. And they go around to someone that's been in an argument or hot and heavy, irritated, and then they slip their little thought, like their little ideas into your head. When you think for yours, it's the right time when you're all upset, and then you act on them.
Yes, because that's how they're trying to feed on the energy.
Yes, and that's another important thing for spiritual hygiene. When you protect yourself and you're wearing that cloak in the morning, okay, and you go out and you set the good intentions when you're in the car, when you're interacting and you're doing all these things, whatever, you are protecting yourself ultimately from those types of attacks. You'll have a clearer mindset when, if a thought comes into your mind, if it actually makes it through your mind and you're like, wait a minute, I don't behave or think like this.
Yeah,
Ah,
discernment.
this isn't my thought. This is
Mm-hmm.
nope, not today. I'm not gonna let you win.
Yeah, and so people who are dealing with more negative baseline frequency, right? They're going to be more prone to acting out on these violent impulses. And it does make you wonder, is this a violent person, or are they possessed by things that we can't see? Possession is real, and there's different degrees of it. Sometimes it goes so everyone thinks The Exorcist, but most possessions don't look like that. And I want to list one more crystal before I get to the next topic of basically exactly what you're talking about, only a little more specific. So the last crystal that I had written down is black obsidian, which actually, rather than repelling like tourmaline does, actually absorbs negative energy. So this crystal needs to be cleaned often. So again, if you're sleeping with this one for protection or wearing it for protection, make sure this crystal in particular is often cleared, because it's pulling in so much and you don't want to be wearing that after that, right? So just watch out for black obsidian. It's wonderful. It is great for protection, but does need to be cleared. Now, on the topic of these random negative beings that are in the field that we can't see, that we wonder if people are picking up on or not, there is a certain substance that many people in our culture abuses to the high heavens, and it's rewarded, it's encouraged, it's the social thing to do, and that's alcohol. And I used to be a very, very big drinker. I never declared that I had a problem, but I was certainly abusing alcohol. And as I began to wake up spiritually and had more awareness about what's happening, I naturally started to remove these demons from my life. But the word alcohol actually stems from the Arabic word, let me sure I say this correctly, alkuhl, 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 and that actually represents body-eating spirit. Now we wonder why we call alcohol spirits, right? Wine and spirits. Why is it spirits? When you're drinking, you're spirited. Alcohol in alchemy is used for extraction. You put alcohol in something, it pulls out the oils, or it pulls out. So when we're guzzling, throwing back these shots, having hard alcohol, well, in essence, what we're doing is extracting our soul. We are not present, which is why typically people no longer act like themselves. The phenomenon of blacking out, not passing out, blacking out, where you are still walking around, functioning, doing things, but you wake up the next day and have no memory. The reason you don't remember is because you weren't home. You were being taken for a ride. You were willingly agreeing to a possession, whether temporary or, this is a long-term demon that you're dealing with, but you are agreeing to it, extracting your soul and allowing something to take you for a ride. And that's how people sometimes end up sleeping with someone that they never meant to, or doing things that they would never. And you can see it in the eyes. I wonder why alcohol affects the eyes so bad. Eyes are what? The windows to the soul. You can tell when someone's gone. Why do we use these words, right? Think about that. Why do we know when someone's blacking out, you look at their face, you say, you're gone, because they are no longer home.
Right.
And it's the same idea as when you're going to sleep and you might deal with an attack. You get all these people together walking around with mingling demons, and you're drinking, so you're all open vessels. So a lot of these negative energies and entities hang out in clubs, bars, a lot of places where a lot of alcohol is being consumed, where it's dark, and it's a breeding ground, and it's so dangerous. And yet this is the substance that is encouraged in society, and you wonder why.
Everywhere. Right? It's encouraged literally through everywhere.
Yeah. And we always do this with social circumstances. We get together, we got to bring alcohol. Why? Because spirits can also body hop. You might not be possessed by the same one the whole time, and you don't know you're possessed. The people around you don't know. This isn't like, this exorcism idea. This is very subtle. Most of these energies are very subtle and hard to detect unless you're aware that this is happening. And so it is really important to, not only limit how much alcohol, definitely do not get to the level of blacking out. I'm not going to sit here and say, don't have any alcohol at all.
Right.
I'm not demonizing anybody, but there's a reason for moderation. There's a reason to be careful in these things. And it has a lot more repercussions than we think.
Yeah. Yep. Well, You're absolutely 100% correct. And I love that you know all this information. I wish more of us did, which we're informing
Getting
people.
there.
So
Yeah.
this is great. We're
Yeah. We're
spreading
getting
the
there.
word, guys. But yeah, it's like a playground for the lower vibration entities. To them, it's great. They hijack your body, your soul steps aside. And like you said, you end up doing things you would never do. Some people who are more angry or stressed, sad, or have had traumatic issues in their life that they have not addressed. Those are the people that are, you can just look at them, go, oh, this is a mean, bad person.
Uh-huh.
Those people who end up drinking are susceptible. Of course, everybody is when you drink, to see your body taken over by these entities, but those people are more dangerous
Yeah,
because
violent.
they're like a loose cannon.
Hmm.
And when these entities come in, they're like, woohoo, I got us a good,
Yeah,
like,
they want to feed on the activity that they can get you to indulge in. So these
yes,
lower dimensional beings often feed on sex because sex belongs to our root chakra and it's
yes,
our
it's a
power
portal,
energy.
the portal opening.
Exactly. So
Yes.
it's ruining the sexual energy and they're feeding on it. And then also
Mhm.
violence again, because that deals with survival. So that's the root chakra. So a lot of times violent acts, abuse, fighting, crying. This is all
They're
lower
there to
dimensional.
create destruction. It's their
Yeah, and that's what
ultimate
they
goal. They
feed on.
love
They
it.
get stronger. And then when you feel
Hmm.
these negative energies, what do you want to do? You want to escape.
Yeah,
We drink and want to leave. And yet it
yeah.
just, it's a vicious cycle of being
Hmm.
unaware of what's happening and then also
Hmm.
wanting to escape from the reality that is
Hmm.
occurring at the same time.
Now, I don't know about you, but I've seen in people's eyes who are more aggressive type people in their daily life sober, I have seen eyes go black.
Mm,
I can tell. I mean, I've paid so much attention over the past years that I can literally glance at somebody and tell whether or not their body has been taken
yeah,
over
yeah,
and hijacked for that time or not. But even to the regular person that's just starting out, just learning all this stuff, when someone's eyes are completely black, they're dark, guess what? The person you know isn't there anymore. And
yeah.
you do not want to interact with this being at
Yeah,
all.
and even people with lighter eyes, it's there's something in it you can tell. It's an energy behind the eyes
Yeah,
that is darkness. It's not necessarily always the color of
you're
darkness,
right. Yeah.
because like you can have a blue-eyed person or me with green eyes. Like if I was negative, you're going to see that even through. But I know exactly what you mean because one of the telltale signs is the eyes.
Mm-hmm.
I like to use, the ruling elite, look up Queen
Mm-hmm.
Elizabeth and see her face and tell me,
Yeah.
does she look like a friendly little nice grandma? I think she looks like an evil lizard. That's
Mm-hmm.
my opinion. But
Yeah.
eyes are the windows to the soul, and you can
Mm-hmm.
see so much
Yeah.
through them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's dangerous. I don't drink anymore. And it actually wasn't by choice, but it is definitely a blessing.
Yeah,
After I had my son, for some reason, alcohol no longer worked well with my body.
yeah,
I've tried it multiple different types, different ways, a little bit here, a little bit there. Every single time, my body detoxes it like it's the poison that it is. My
yeah.
body's like, no, your light body is raising. We don't need to lower it. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. The more you raise your frequency, the harder it is actually to tolerate alcohol.
Yeah.
So I had a higher alcohol tolerance back when I was drinking a lot because I was in a really negative energy. That's when I
Mm-hmm.
was questioning God. I didn't feel connected. I just wanted to party. There was no point to so many things in my reality.
Mm-hmm.
And I was drinking at a ridiculous pace. I used to tally my shots to see how many I took in a night because I thought it was fascinating. Um,
Yeah.
I was drinking so much. And then as I began my spiritual journey, which I mentioned happened in 2016, I slowly started to get sicker and sicker the more that I drank, but it was actually I was drinking less. So like as I
Right.
continued to drink, I was
Mm-hmm.
only able to handle a little and then I would get sick and I'd be wondering like what the hell? I was like so proud of myself, a heavyweight champion, out drinking everybody. And now I can't have nothing. Like what was happening? And what I realized was as I was healing my demons, there was no more demons left to drink my alcohol. It was all on me. And I realized I'm
Mm-hmm.
not really good at this anymore. And so I slowly gravitated away and like I'll occasionally have a beer or something. Again, I don't demonize everything, but I no longer drink to be drunk like I used to. I don't even like to get tipsy. If I have a drink, it's one. I mostly stick to like a glass of red wine here and there. And I use it for, social circumstances here and there. I'm not perfect, but
Well, and red wine is good for you
yeah,
in moderation like that
yeah,
anyways.
exactly.
That's
Yeah,
good.
like I have a glass and I water it down with my living water. It's amazing. If you don't water down your wine, you should try it. It's
You know
fantastic.
what could be a good thing to do even before drinking, is, that red wine, is even make an intention before you consume it, that,
Yeah, yeah. My
hey,
intention is
I
to
don't
just be
I don't
social.
concede to any low vibration entities coming into me. I am just going to enjoy this one glass of wine. It's going to benefit my body. It's going to be good for me, and
Yeah.
that's it.
What though, I find that awareness really helps. As soon as I started becoming aware that this was not good for my healing journey, that
Yeah.
this was welcoming in demons, meanwhile I'm trying to heal demons. How could I?
Mm-hmm.
I just naturally evolved out of my drinking phase. I didn't go to bars anymore. I didn't go to clubs anymore. They weren't interesting to me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I dove deeper and deeper, and again, now I just have like a glass of red wine at home every here and there on the weekends, and it's like that's
Yeah.
plenty. I don't know what I was doing before.
Well, okay, so all these stars that have to go away to these rehab facilities, and I'm specifically talking about like the drinkers, but I mean
Hmm.
this could go towards any kind of substance abuse.
Hmm.
They push religion like, oh, okay, you want to stop drinking, so like look to God, and in a sense, it's like, oh, you're so close. It's like,
Hmm. Yeah.
okay, let's not talk about the religion aspect and focus on getting in a connection with God. It's get into a connection with yourself, because as you raise your vibration, for you and even for me, after I had my son, is when I was going through my spiritual awakening. So that's
Hmm.
why I couldn't drink anymore. But your body naturally doesn't want it anymore. So
Yes.
I feel like these people that are struggling, that really want to get help, or they're in these rehab facilities, let's not focus so much on turning to religion. That's somebody else. It's still an external source. Find your inner guide, okay, and do affirmations, protect yourself, do the spiritual hygiene, love yourself,
Yeah.
and eventually you won't look for those avenues anymore. Your body will reject it. Even if you try it and you go, oh, this makes me sick, I don't want this.
Yeah,
That,
that brings up another point too for spiritual hygiene is one of the best things to do is to go out in nature.
yes.
Nature will remind you of why we're here. Nature reminds you of who you are. It is really the truest church. There is no higher religion here. This is me speaking, but
Mm-hmm.
there's no higher religion than acknowledging nature, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so grounding is a wonderful spiritual hygiene practice. We need to be getting our bare feet on the ground to absorb the negative ions from earth, helps
Yes.
clear our field. It clears us on a spiritual level, a physical level. There
Mm-hmm.
is research done that shows that how the body reacts after interacting with nature and in your bare feet, or if you're lay on nature. I talk a lot about people who can't sleep and are out of their circadian rhythm to go spend a week camping, or even I think it might be 3 nights is what you need to reset your body clock. Nature restores us to a remembrance of who we are on the deepest level, because society again is full of distractions and confusion, and in the confusion is where the devil lies, the devil
Mm-hmm. Right.
speaking of negative energy.
Mm-hmm.
But coming back to nature, coming back to what God, the universe created, is so healing. And so for people who are struggling with that kind of stuff, like you mentioned, rather than going to church and religion, take yourself outside, go for an outside retreat. Don't bring the alcohol, don't bring anything. And touch, the water, touch earth. The elements themselves are so purifying, are so protecting. I believe like you can even use dirt in some spiritual protection ceremonies, using the dirt from earth and stuff like that. I'm not well versed in all that, but I know I've seen it. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, it holds so much clearing energy. It's
Yeah.
so important to expose yourself to outside.
Yeah, we should have all of the places where people go to get help. I'm going blank on rehab places. They should all be run by shamans. I mean, literally, like this is what every single person ultimately needs, you know, because we're just soon our children are going to learn from an early age how to come in touch with ourselves more and how to develop our own abilities and all this stuff. But right now, ultimately, we all need a rehab,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, but yeah,
That's
for
a
that
lot of what,
aspect,
yeah, it's a
it's
lot
the
of what building
shamans.
this new world is, right? It's like
Mhm.
rehabilitating ourselves from this
Yeah.
false
Yeah.
matrix that we've been in, that these inorganic
Mhm.
codes that we've been given. And so returning ourselves to nature, to our
Mhm.
original design, to our
Yeah.
spirit is really the most utmost thing we could do in spiritual
Yeah.
protection. Becoming aware of your spirit,
Yeah.
working with it, and understanding, oh my goodness, it's life is so much more than just this stressful, fast-paced
Yeah.
reality. Like, we can slow down, we can tune in, and we can trust our own guidance. We can
Yeah.
trust that voice that is encouraging and not the one that's berating.
Right.
That's the echo chamber of the negative energy that is
Mhm.
circling, whether it's your home life or the media
Mhm.
or just society in general.
Yeah.
The society runs a bit on negative death type culture, and
Yeah. To keep us in that low frequency. And if we all practice spiritual hygiene and we all ended up like perfecting it, then we would have, because not everybody has that inner sense of like, oh, okay, well, this is the direction I need to go, and okay, I trust my inner self. There's a lot of that confusion. So the more we do our spiritual hygiene, the more clearer it'll be, the road ahead of us will be, which path to take.
Yeah.
So for me, is what I also do for my spiritual hygiene, um, is I have a black obsidian knife,
Nice.
and is what I do is cleanse myself with it. I'll cut cords
Yes.
throughout my whole body, and you don't have to have a knife to do it. You don't even have to have obsidian. You can just imagine your hands being scissors and you're cutting the cords. I use this just because I have children, just to give them more of a visual of what we're kind of doing. And you cut it, you cut off any kind of attachments. Every single time you talk to somebody, whether it's in person, like how we're doing, communicating, you're exchanging an energy vibration with that person, and you're now linked to them through an
Yeah,
energetic
you're
cord.
tuned into the field.
I
Absolutely.
cut all negative cords off, cut them, go all the way down your toes, and then is what you do is you pull the thorns out. You pull because you're cutting. So then now you just kind of want to pull everything out, throw it out the window.
Yeah, I love
You
that.
know.
Yeah, cord cutting is so important, especially when dealing with like relationships. If you had a
Mm-hmm.
breakup and you can't seem to get over, you have to cord cut. Like, there
Mm-hmm.
are energetic tethers that are not letting you move on or keeping, the energy in your thoughts. And
Mm-hmm.
cutting the cords is something you can do to return your energy to yourself, to
Yeah.
say, okay, I want to clear my field, return my energy back to me, remove anyone that isn't me. And that's so key for spiritual hygiene. That's something you should do every day before bed as well. With the shielding, should be cord cutting.
Mm-hmm.
Clearing and cord cutting, remove anything interactions from the day, but it's really important if you are going through a removal of people in your life. It doesn't always have to
Yeah.
be, an intimate relationship. It can be a negative influence of a friend or even family. Sometimes family does not have your best interest in mind, and you have
Mm-hmm.
to energetically cut cords. That doesn't mean that they necessarily disappear out of your life, but that they don't have
Mm-hmm.
access to interfering with your field until you
Mm-hmm.
tether another cord.
Yeah,
And
and you
so,
can cord cut the energetic fields that we're getting from our TVs. I can watch something on TV and I'm like, oh my God, this makes me
that's
feel
heavy.
some type of
Yeah.
way. Cut it and release it. It doesn't
Yeah.
always have to be a person contact, just any kind of energetic contact that you have
Yeah.
and you want to release. Really
Absolutely.
good.
And an indicator of it's time for some serious spiritual hygiene is depression and anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
If you are going through a depression wave, if you are getting anxious about things in your life, you have a buildup of heaviness that is clouding your judgment, clouding your view of yourself, again, creating confusion, creating a lack of clarity. So if you are going through a depression, whatever's going on in the world is an influence too. But what it's saying is it's time for a reset. It's time to clear. It's time to take your spiritual hygiene very seriously. And
Mm-hmm.
so another way of clearing your field is by sound frequency. So you can get, tuning forks within the field. I have a friend who does tuning forks. She's amazing. I might link her in the bio. Yes, and Starr does it too. I love it.
That's right.
It's so important. So because what happens is each fork is tuned to a specific frequency. And these frequencies are able to penetrate different sections and areas of our auric field that sage can't always get to, that crystals might not always get to, but everything is sound. Everything is a vibration. Therefore, sound and frequency at its highest form is able to evaporate and remove energies. And so doing, if you have your own forks or you have a singing bowl, you can always go on YouTube as well and look up, healing frequencies. 528 hertz is amazing for miracle healing tone. And then also singing, because we have our own divine sound. The throat is sacred, and you can put your hand on your throat and feel the sound of your own voice. Feel the vibration. That's why words of affirmation and saying them, not just listening to them, but participating in them is so important, because now, rather than just absorbing the frequency all day, you're emanating your own, you're building up this frequency. And so sound is of the utmost importance. Sound, clearing, water purification, keeping yourself hydrated too. I find that as long as you are keeping yourself, drinking the water and everything like that, your body is going to have more of a defense against some of the negative energies that might get stuck. It's a whole big system, and it's so important to do this on a daily practice.
Yeah. So what you were saying, okay, so with the water, Dr. Emoto, Emoto, if anybody wants to look him up, he managed to prove scientifically that water is sensitive to our thoughts, words, and feelings. So because of this, water can change its molecular structure according to the environment it's introduced to. So if we are saying good things, playing good music to our water, sending good intentions and thoughts into it, thanking our water, but also with the affirmations, it's the same thing. Because when you're saying, I am beautiful, I am loved, I am enough, I love myself, you end up changing the molecular structure within yourself too, because we are the majority percent of water. We're water and we're electromagnetic. So positive words, positive affirmations to fake it till you make it, then come up with your own affirmations, speaking to your water. It is scientifically proven to lift you up, make you into a better, happier person so you can think more clearly and be a happier person in life.
Yeah, because if you're not speaking nicely to yourself, like we mentioned before, your body's waters are listening and they're organizing and restructuring according. And I definitely suggest looking into Dr. Emoto's research, because he froze these water crystals and gave them certain intention, even played music. So if you're someone into like heavy metal, death metal, that destroys the frequency of the water. Affirmations. So much of us is water, not just the collective, our cells, our blood, you can look it up, like kidneys are like 75% water, like everything is water, and it's constantly listening to you, and it's receiving the vibrations, which is why tuning works so well. But also the music you're listening to, what sounds are you putting on in your environment? What are you welcoming in? What are you cultivating? And I think, that's super important. Water consciousness is really entering the field, realizing that we ourselves are living water. We are bags of water walking around, we are in nature, so connected to this element. And so I find another thing that maybe it's just me, but like going out in the rainwater while it's raining, if you're able to, like if you're going to work, I get it, but like if you're home or you have a day off and it's raining and you feel called to step outside barefoot and receive the cleansing, because the rain occurs not just because nature requires it, but it's a clearing, it's a cleansing. So we can look at nature and say that wind is a conduit for change, because it blows things around, it moves it around. Fire is of purification and transformation, because it turns things to ash. That's why wildfires sometimes happen organically, though non-organic ones are dangerous. They happen for a reset. Earth herself shifts and moves foundations. It's to shake you up, to free up energy. Water is to cleanse, not purify, but to cleanse. And then like a thunderstorm, lightning is meant to charge, so it recharges the field. So if you're in a safe environment, I don't recommend that you run outside in the worst lightning storm, but if it is a thunder and lightning storm, for a minute or two, just receive it. Even if you're not under the rain, just receive the charging, like tune into nature, because there's so much more than just burning the sage and dealing with crystals. It's an everyday awareness of our spiritual nature and our connection to earth that really creates the spiritual hygiene. And what spiritual hygiene really is your spiritual immunity. Immunity starts within the spirit. If you have low vibration, low spirit, you're going to be so much more prone to sickness, like we mentioned before, how it goes from field inner to then the physical. So it's really the first layer of your immune system. So keeping your mind clean, keeping your diet on the cleaner side, keeping the sounds you listen to, like we are a sacred temple. We really are. And we're so powerful and so full of potential that negative beings want to manipulate us and have us working for them subconsciously, subconscious or unconscious contracts that we don't realize we're agreeing to. And so what this does, spiritual hygiene, is erases those contracts and you allow yourself to start from a clean slate. So keeping up with that is how we break cycles.
That's like a pathway to escape the cycle and step into your own self and your own divine.
Yes, absolutely.
Spiritual hygiene is literally the pathway to escape.
So important. So important. Yeah. If you're just starting to wake up, you're just starting your path, or maybe you're on your path already and spiritual hygiene gets thrown to the back seat occasionally. You know, we do all this other work that's fun and we forget to clear the field and we forget to do these things. This is essential. This is, you know, spiritual being 101. Protect yourself, protect your field, protect your loved ones. And we can dive into this topic so much. There's so many different things we can continuously say, and it's so important. But I think we did I think we covered it well for the day. How do you feel?
Yeah, I feel really great. One thing I just want to add is that you know, just like all of the elements that are there and they serve a specific reason, you know, a specific thing, you know, like the fire, the burning, and the water. Spiritual hygiene is also like all of those different elements. You need to pull all of them in, and we need to use them, and we need to practice, and we will end up, you know, walking out of it a better, happier, healthy person in the end.
Yes. It's essential to our everyday life.
Yeah.
And so, you know, if you guys have any spiritual hygiene techniques or tips or your go-tos, feel free to let us know in the comments. We'd love to see if you learned anything today, or if you have anything to tell us, let us know. We'd love to interact, build a community here of spiritual beings and people who feel like you're on the same mission of waking up. And so we appreciate everyone who tuned in, anyone who likes, comments, subscribes. We appreciate you. We love you. And yeah, this is Guiding Stars with Star Keeper and Starland.
That's right. See you next time.